Yep.
So, hello everybody. This is the very great time to invite Iskander from Amsterdam this moment. So this time the privacy talks about the exploring the physical Internet of Things, how this new opportunity will interact with our life. So Iskander is expert of this space, and today I'm gonna explore with him about the future Internet of Things. So thank you for coming, Iskander, this time.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Hi.
Pleasure. So let's, first of all, I'd like to introduce his profile. Iskander is a business researcher and the lab co-director at the Faculty of Industrial Design Engineering. He is the innovation director at Agency Info in Amsterdam that crafts connected digital products and services. Iskander is responsible for research and development and the leading labs. This R&D department is dedicated to new developments and emerging connected technologies. Labs conducts research in and experiments on the internet and how we interact beyond the screen. They work closely together with research institutes and the universities. Since 2010, Iskander is a member of Council Internet of Things and co-founded the Behavior Design AMS meetup in 2013. In 2014, he initiated and co-organized the Amsterdam edition of Berlin conference ThingsCon, a leading conference on the design of the Internet of Things that has a mission to foster the creations of a responsible and human-centric Internet of Things. Since 2017, Iskander is the chairman of the foundation ThingsCon Amsterdam. So again, great to honor to have a call this moment today.
Thanks. That's a very extensive introduction.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's move on to today's agenda. I'm honestly, I'm a beginner of the industrial design field, but I'm very curious of this space because we will see in more technologies into the physical space. I want to ask you about your background. So why did you come to the industrial design field? Any opportunity you have since you have started?
Well, I've been educated as a industrial design engineer in my studies, but I ended up after my studies in digital design, more in the digital world, in digital services with info later, and so I really started my career more in the digital realm, but as soon as the physical part, the Internet of Things, started to pop up a little bit more, I really got interested in that. And what you already mentioned in the introduction with the research lab that we have at the digital agency, I really was looking into what it means when the physical and the digital will become more and more connected, and that's what's happening more and more. Even we see this happen for some years now, but it becomes more and more out of the world of the gadgets into the world of the everyday, so to say. So that's what we do with ThingsCon. We're really looking at the conference that it's more like a community of practices, even where we really look into what is the impact of this IoT Internet of Things for people, for and how to design for that, how to be a responsible designer for this world. And that's a main interest. And also now what I do in Delft, in the Delft University of Technology, where I started this Cities of Things lab, as it's called. So it's a lab for doing research, what will change in our life when we will live together with more intelligent and autonomous things, and robots, of course, but also more things that are less humanoid, but more like a delivery cart or some other system or thing that become more and more intelligent. It will change the way that we relate to these things. How we start using technology more as a partner than as a tool is an interesting theme that I think I'm looking into. And there are some elements there that are really interesting, like, for instance, the trust in these technologies, and how do we trust these technologies, and can we how do we depend on this? So these are the things that I'm really looking for in the research. And the industrial design engineering, well, that's going back to your question, is of course, for that, I think it's very interesting how these worlds are merging and intermingling, and how the products, we used to have the products and services maybe, and it became a little bit together, like product service systems. And now you see even that digital products start to become also a physical product. That's funny thing that last week happened, that you see that Spotify introduced a kind of a thing for in your car. They call it even a car thing, just like that. It's almost like a joke, but it's I think it's a real serious product. But they take the digital product, the digital service for Spotify, and transform it into a physical product. And that's what you see, and what I think is really interesting. It was really, for a long time, it was really about, well, we have products and we have services, and we try to connect these in a certain way. We see how this product become part of a service. But now you see that it's really becoming more one thing, and that's really interesting. And what does that do for all kind of questions? I can go on with talking. I don't know, maybe you want to ask a question.
Yeah, but that is very awesome. And you take some role of the innovations, right? That is very my curiosities for you. That's what is the innovations, and what is the role for that?
Well, innovation is, of course, kind of it's interesting. Innovation is becoming more like a standard, almost default thing for innovation, looking into new stuff, but it's also trying to look a little bit further than the current day-to-day practice, and innovation has become a kind of a it's not buzzwords maybe, but it's kind of a standard thing. Well, you have to do, you have to be innovative to survive. Well, that's of course true, but maybe in a certain way. But it's also kind of what is innovation? It's really about setting a little bit the goals a little bit further than just the things for now. And what I think is important, and actually also with the design aspect, is that you're not only looking at the future, but also how does it have impact, and what kind of impact are you designing for? So it's not only thinking about a nice product that works well or that functions well or a service, but more also what is the impact in people's lives, and how do you design for that? And innovation is often a kind of a technology-driven thing, but that's not true. It's really also about processes and about design things. So
that is very interesting. You mentioned about the beyond the technologies to be more interactive with the people who is living in the cities where people is taking the great benefits from the technologies. I assume this is the very critical thinking of us that we necessary to work on this moment for more public usage of the technologies. So my next question about the transitions. You've been working at the industrial design field almost a decade. From your perspective, how has been changed of the industrial design field since the internet will be connected to the devices, physical products, and how do you envision that?
Well, I was a little bit in that what I mentioned we see that it's becoming more like one thing. The product and services in the design is becoming more and more in the use now, becoming product services design, and it's becoming connected. So it is that service become less less static, so to say. And it's almost a dimension, just like digital. But we know from digital services that can change all the time. That will become more personalized, bespoke for one person or one group of people. Also to the physical world, so that products become more changing things. Someone kind of some researchers had built and changing become like their behavior and their services. So you have to design now as a designer, not for a static outcome, but you have to design for kind of scenarios almost for things that are changing all the time, that can adapt to your use and even become more can use predictive knowledge as what I research specifically in my lab. Also what will happen when things start to predict, like digital services already do with again Spotify as an example, where you have these Discover Weekly that makes a kind of an example of your taste, almost prediction of your taste for now. These kind of things will happen also in the physical world, and we see that there's a big program also starting in Delft with some colleagues that's really looking in how products, the things that we starting to design from products are not anymore the functional things, the functional aspects, but more the agency aspects. So what kind of freedom, how will products start to behave in relation to us? That's Professor Chiacardi, Elias Chiacardi, is very much involved in that process of how can we design these kind of systems that and the product and is beyond human-centered design even. So how does this relation between products and humans are changing, and how do we as designers have to deal with that? That's an interesting question. So that's the part of design, I think, and maybe I
thank you.
We see that maybe I can maybe, I don't know if that's a question, but what we do with ThingsCon and also looking into the trust part and the trust mark, maybe I think something you also like to discuss. I think it has an interesting relation also, because we started with that aspect of trust as an important part of technology and how you design for products and products that become connected, because there are new products become you bought a product for life maybe and it was quite of defined, and now you have all these kind of systems that are beyond the product and also defining the functionality of it, and if it's still functioning, so to say. So we looked at a system for trustable technology, trust mark. What is a good product? And we really look in a couple of aspects, dimensions. How that Peter Beer from Things from Berlin started it, and we're really looking into this privacy and data practices, transparency, security, stability, and openness as a kind of aspect for products that should be trustable more. And so, and it has a lot to do with how you deal with data and data use and security aspects, of course, but also transparency. What is happening in that product? How you use product? You can. That's an important part. But what I also always think a very interesting question is the stability part, in the sense that is a product, how long can you expect that the product will function like this? And like if the product is connected to a digital system and network, can it be outdated at a certain moment because of the software that is not working anymore? And will the product then break down or not? So these are questions that you can ask. And there's also new regulations, almost, of new concepts. We expect a certain product to last a certain amount of time, but what does that mean for new products? We see that already these kind of shifts happening with, well, cars are a nice example, of course, where we see that certainly you see it more and more happening. Tesla started with it, that the car you buy a physical product that is changing all the time with over-the-air updates. And and all the car brands are doing this now too. So you see that this aspect of what is the product that you buy and what's the product that you use, and even is it still a product that you buy and use, or is it a product that you share? No, all these kind of things are really changing now at the last couple of years, and that asks a lot about what are you designing in the end, and what can the users or the human expect from it, and beyond human-centered design. What does it do for the context that they live in, the societal context or the city, and that's another aspect. We have to look beyond the user-product relation. We also have to look into what happens, what does it impact more than just this one-on-one relationship between the user and the product. It also impacts maybe the city or the community that you live in, or other aspects, or maybe the environment. There's so much more aspects that makes it also quite complex, of course. So it's that's really still kind of a question of how can we deal with this also? What do we need as a kind of elements that we can still design for, so to say. I hope this is a bit clear.
It's a very critical point. As you quoted, that trust with the technology is a key element. Then to choose which technology it's been very good for the citizens, the people it's using for the specific purposes. And you wrote on your blogs, maybe it was 4 years ago, but it was the very progressive ideas. Then you called it the ethics of things. It's kind of the more ethical approach with the Internet of Things or artificial intelligences, that those technology will be integrated into the one specific aggregations. Those technology will empower this, as well as sometimes this technology will be have bad impact for the users. So how we can produce the ethic idea into the design of the Internet of the Things?
Yeah, it's a really important element. I think it's luckily, I think it's also becoming really part of design practice for it's at least at the university, of course, but also at our company Info. We have some people that really are into the digital ethic now, thinking about it. You see that it's becoming more and more part of people's thinking, and what of course is an important element there is the second order or furthermore effects of the things that you use, and how do you use things, and how it relates to the community and the context. So I've been looking together with some others into the value sensitive design. That's a kind of a concept that kind of a design approach that is more in academic world already kind of is a specialty, or people are really into that. And how does that relate to the practice? So what value sensitive design is really about, thinking not only about the design of this product, the design of the first order effect, maybe, or the thing, the community, or how can you think about these kind of impacts beyond just this one product, this one service? So that's a real important way of thinking about it. And there's of course also always discussion about how much this really covers all the things, but it's a really good starting point, I think, to open up the thinking and really think about what is the impact of things, and especially in a city context, and when things become things become citizens. What I also maybe already in that piece, I don't know if it's already there, but it's indeed 4 years ago. But it was a little bit the beginning of this research program. Then I start thinking about it together with Elisa Giugardi to sketch out this partnerships with cities of things, things in the city. Yeah, but it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting topic. From you have this. Yeah, you have these aspects that are really important when you design a good, well-behaving product or something like that. Someone called it, or is it more like, and what is also after having a good product, also how does it impact potentially the rest of the world? And yeah, you see, of course, in the digital world, we now are really used to already, or we have now enough experience that the things that we build with a kind of a positive thinking, with a positive intention, like the social media things, and sometimes it's not only positive but also commercial, but still we were starting with the idea that social media will connect people and will empower people to have more agency as citizens. But you see that it could also turn around and get the other way around. What we see with all the discussions about the Facebook and others that impacting the way that we make decisions and how we are influenced in making decisions. Well, this is in the digital world, and I think we have to be aware that when we merge together the physical and the digital world, that we know what we are doing, and that becomes also part of our physical life and everyday life and all the things that we use. So I think it's very important to bring in this ethical thinking, and ethical thinking is, in the first place, I think, being aware of the consequences that you do and that you design for. And if you have that as a starting point, then it will be a good thing. Yeah, but yeah. But yeah, we will also. You can also go a little bit further. We organize a workshop in June with a couple of people from universities of Delft and others, really looking into how you can deal as a citizen with all these things. So kind of how can you maybe even be subversive to these systems that you have been watched all the time. Yeah. I think that I was also mentioning that, I don't know if it's mentioned in that article, but yeah, there's of course also a consequence if you know that you'll be watched all the time, that you know, and that you, if people becoming more aware of that, it will also influence their feeling of security, of safety, and what they can do and not. On a kind of a level, and you can say, often people say, I have nothing to hide, so don't. It doesn't really matter, but that's not true. Everyone has something to hide, or at least maybe not directly something to hide, but you want to have the personal space to be yourself and to be able to do your own thing. So in a sense of being, that's of course to link it to your privacy initiative, theme. Of course, I think privacy is a lot about control and having the trust to be able to control the things that you can do and that you have agency of. I think that's a very important aspect there.
I see. Yeah, on the same blog that you mentioned about the inclusive design, inclusive city, that is the key parts of the realistic approach through the Internet of the Things. I assume that some people is worried about you mentioned on the privacy, that's you are in a surveillance of the specific product, the devices, that has been very fearful for them. And my question is about in Amsterdam, where is the part of the very highly developed of the smart cities, inclusion of the technologies from the Japanese perspective. So when it's come to developing a smart city project, how do you prevent the surveillance of privacy for the citizens where they're living? to keep the well-being so good, to take a benefit through the technologies. So is there any original concept with that?
Yes, I think there are some real interesting projects happening in Amsterdam in that sense. Maybe you should even talk to some people from that project. But there's one of these that I'm involved in now, in looking into also with some students into aspects that you can really control for surveillance. Literally, what if you can control as a citizen the surveillance that's happening? And so we have these systems and these cameras, but there's a kind of a problem that as soon as they're in the city space, it's hard for policymakers or municipalities to switch down to switch them off, because it's easier to keep them on than to switch them off. And but how can you make a system maybe that creates kind of a level playing field, and even the same level, even level playing field for citizens and people that are watching them, to see how they can make maybe free safe routes, or can maybe being able to contest if there's a problem with that. So they're doing these kind of projects. The AMS Institute, it's called. It's the Amsterdam Institute of Advanced Metropolitan Solutions. A mouthful, but it's kind of a research institute in Amsterdam that's really looking into these kind of projects, and how if the city is sensing us, what can we provide for things, also in to make people more have control of these kind of things. So these are, and that they worked a lot together with the city of Amsterdam. So making these kind of, you can say, let's start by making it transparent. What is happening? How can what, and then, but also give them tools to deal with that, to maybe give them more, give them more agency, more control about these kind of systems. That's, I think, the core thing. So really, you can look into these kind of projects, and I hope that some of the students that in the lab in Delft can also contribute to make these kind of designs on top of these kind of thinking, because that's an important one. You have to make it more concrete almost, and to show it how that can work. So
So you mentioned before this that you working on the trustable technologies. My question is, I'm also the same explorations, how we can prove that this is trust or distrusted. So how do you define the trusted technology? Is that very challenges for us to put the specific framework for that?
Well, I was a little bit mentioning it very quickly, of course, but we have indeed developed peer-to-peer for a start in Pfingstcon, Germany. But we really want to make kind of a trust mark, was the idea, and that's you can find it on trustabletechnology.org. And they developed kind of dimensions for trust. What are these dimensions of trust for products? And so these 5 dimensions are just privacy and data practices. How do products deal with these kind of data, and what happens with the data, and how do you do they take GDPR in Europe in mind, these kind of principles. The other aspect is then about the transparency, how clear is what happens with your data, with your network, and how is it connected. So is it clear for the user how it functions, and is it not only a black box, but is it really happening? Security is, of course, another aspect, the third one. That really, do you take security as a part of your design practice? Technicals, you can privacy by design, but you have also security by design. So how do you take these security aspects into account when you are designing for this network product, so to say? Well, stability was the aspect that I mentioned a little bit more before, about how what is the when is the product still working, and is it not breaking down as soon as the first software update if happening? And the last one is openness. So how are you? And openness is maybe literally how much can you do as a user, maybe as a advanced user, but to also control a little bit the working of it. Maybe even can you be part of this process? Is that maybe even it can be open source even, but it can be a little bit less open source, but more like controllable by the user. Maybe it's interesting. We did a masterclass 2 weeks ago, 9th of April. So yeah, it's almost 2 weeks ago. On this whole thing from how are we going to make this responsible design for network objects, and we're really looking into these aspects. And we took a case Sonos in this sense, is the speaker, the smart speaker that is really a well-designed product that works in a lot of ways very well, and it does a very good job in making a good product. It's kind of honest in the way that they don't sell your data. They say, or at least you buy a product and not a service. So they don't have these kind of products problems with other systems. But they still had some discussion about when there became a new system was introduced, and they discontinued the old system, and there was a lot of discussion about it, and they also came back to that, I think. So and it's really a question from what can you expect when you buy these kind of speakers? Do you expect it to last for 10 years? If I buy my old-fashioned hi-fi speakers that I have also, these are maybe 20 years old and they still work, no problem. But if you buy a Sonos, do you expect the same from that? Or these kind of questions are really interesting in evaluating this product. And what we did in the Trust Mark, we had a big list of questions just to ask them from the companies from how did you take this into account, and did you think about this? And yeah, we gave a couple of trust marks in the beginning as a kind of a thing for producers to advertise with. But we think, that's a whole different. Well, I think that's very well known, of course, to make these kind of overviews of systems. You have these energy labels where you can see how much energy used. I think that's a very interesting way to also look at this aspect. So, but that should be done by some organization, I think, that's really capable of also managing these kind of processes. We, as a voluntary foundation that's just organizing events and stuff, it's for us a little bit hard to maintain these kind of things. So we're really looking into what would be next steps. And for now, it's just about the principles, and we really, maybe there are some others, maybe you, that take this kind of things into more like a thing that also producers can use as a kind of advertisement for their good products. But the problem is also that it can change all the time. So, for instance, Sonos is also an interesting case because it was bought by IKEA, it's not bought by, but it bought another company, but it also did some collaborations with IKEA. So how does that change the whole trust mark then? Should you do revisiting it or something? So very practical if you start to do these kind of things. Be aware that it takes a lot of time, at least, to maintain that. So, but that's more the practical part. But for the thinking and for these principles, I think this is a very nice framework with these 5 dimensions of trust. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we working on the privacy field by designing the concept based, and we try to seek the win-win approach between the users and devices. The services will be more fairness of the data ecosystem. Still, we haven't seen those kind of the conceptual approach. I think your initiative has been a new kind of the practices for the devices to be more safety signalings for the users can easy to define. It has been a more better choice for them. So that is very awesome.
Yeah, what I really would think from my, if this is from the Think School and the connected products, what I really would be interesting also is to take into account, and that's not so much in this dimensions yet, but what will happen when these things start to become more like intelligent things, start really not only having data involved, but also kind of intelligent behavior. Does that change the way that maybe it's not impacting these things? I didn't really think about it in this detail yet, but I can imagine that the way that things start to behave and start to influence your life, it's quite hard to put that in these kind of elements, but I can imagine that it's a very important part also to think about. And that's one of the things that I had a student that did a research in and now has written a paper about how calibrated trust for autonomous vehicles, for self-driving cars, or how that will, how will trust be part of that design process? Did a very nice project there. Talked to a lot of experts, and I think the paper will be published in September. So, but it's really an extra aspect, so to say, for this kind of principles. So not only thinking about the data and the privacy, but also what is happening with the data, how is the data used, and also processed, so to say. You see that also already in the digital world, that people say, yeah, data is not the storage your data, or people have, it's not, they don't store your data, your personal data, they store the processed data, the data that has been processed, and they can say, well, that's not your personal data anymore. It's the data from the service provider. Even that's their view on your data and your behavior. So it's really a kind of a blurry field, and it's really hard to define. Yeah, I don't have the right answer yet for that. To be honest. So maybe you should more look into the intentions than into the practice of the data itself.
Yeah,
I'm just very curious what you come up with in the end, and see what your label will be, or whatever it will come to. I think you're speaking now to a lot of people. I don't know, what did you learn already? Things I'm asking you a question now, but did you learn already some things that you want to take into account in your own?
We also try to take some of the steps to authorize the services and products for the visible approach. The user can easy to percept whether this product or objective will be good for them or not. I think those judgment is a very complex this time, such as we have to see the privacy policies, the time of the use. That is a very complicated. It's very hard for the users to comprehend all the descriptions. That is not the meaning for this moment, but we give a data for the companies. That is not the fairs from the user perspective. We have to bring back this kind of the options for the users can easy to select the options through the remarkable options. So that is just something that I have in mind. And we have to design it. The default is approach. So that is the privacy by design is very important.
I think that's a very interesting aspect, and you will see if these products become more intelligent and take some more decisions also for you, and then it will be very interesting what will happen then, and how will you design this dialogue and this agency of the human in that equation. I think that's an example that I also often use when I spoke about the things that predict. We already have these kind of systems now, the Amazons of this world, or the delivery people that are not have a boss anymore. That's a human, but the boss is the algorithm. So what will happen when you when you will be ruled by the products that you buy, and how are you going to control that? I think that's a very important part of the future discussion of these kind of privacy or yeah. Maybe privacy is too limited, but these products that can be trusted. And so yeah, we're just at the beginning there. That's really something that really needs a lot of exploration, but it's really important aspect, I think. Yeah. So I'm curious how you, especially in your context, I guess, you have in Japan a different relation with things, so to say, from a cultural start, and that may be an interesting starting point also to think about this kind of things, specifically these kind of things.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah.
So yeah, lastly, could you give us any message that suppose this interview visitor wants to know about your conceptually of the designing the concept into the specific products or services that helps them to imagine the future directions. So could you give us a message?
A message, yes. Well, it's a little bit what I said indeed, and then in the end, just before is indeed. I really think it's important to think beyond. Indeed, that's the starting point. Think beyond this user product interactions. I think what it really also impacts beyond that, and it could be something good, and it could also something bad, but really take that into account, and that's an important part. And also start thinking about what will happen when the thing that you use is not only something that you use as a tool, but also something that can be that can use you, or that can interact with you and maybe influence you or impact you. What will happen then, and how are you designing this partnership with things? I think that's really important for designers and policy makers and others. Is really an important thing to think about for this. So that would be my maybe my two messages. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I was inspired that you've working on some laboratories where it's been a very innovative approach, and we are really learning from some project in Amsterdam. Especially, we've working on the digital identity, give back rights to the individual can control it. I was inspired from the Privacy by Design Foundation, where developing identity products that helps the people can be connected many public services, which is ideal for the future's device connected industries. So we can explore the futures together, then make great things happen through the collaborations. So yeah, thank you for coming, Iskander, this moment. Great to have a call.
Thank you for inviting, and good luck with all the initiatives and all the other interviews also that you talk to, and we'll keep an eye on the development.
Yeah, thank you for having this time.
Thank you. Bye.